So I would argue it starts with a basis in law, Constitution. Article 1 of the Constitution says Congress has the right to, or responsibility to raise and support armies. Put it in today's vernacular, they provide resources and oversight. That's what Congress does. Secondly, Congress has the right to declare war. Article 2, the President, he's the Commander-in-Chief of the Armed Forces. And with War Powers Act, he can obviously employ forces on short notice. Things have changed since the time the Constitution was written, so there is that tension right there. Third article, the judicial branch. We have just seen recently where the Commander-in-Chief wanted to take some money that Congress had provided to the Army and reapportion it to build a wall. Congress said, can't do that, took it to court. The judicial branch said, yes, you can use those funds to build a wall for security. So there is a basis in law and they play part. Secondly, the Title 10 U.S. Code charges the secretaries of the services to execute certain functions. So, for example, recruit, organize, train, equip, supply, maintain. So those service secretaries are charged by Title 10 to do those functions. Congress appropriates money by and large to the services. So that's why the services are spending the money. That's why the services have that responsibility to equip, train their soldiers no matter where they are in the world. That process by which the service secretaries do that is known as ADCON, administrative control. Two words that are related with ADCON, administration and support. That's what the service secretaries are charged with doing. When forces are in theater, they do it through the ASCC commander, typically. In our case, the Theater Army Commander, through ADCON, has that responsibility to provide that support to them. There's a hierarchy to our strategy documents, national security strategy. The Commander-in-Chief, executive branch, comes up with that, and his responsibilities or authorities with respect to forces, he assigns forces in the Geographic Combatant Command's AORs. So those forces are out there. The next level or tier, National Defense Strategy, Secretary of Defense comes up with that. His authority with respect to forces, he allocates. So if there was a contingency, crisis, op plan that had to be executed in a specific Geographic Combatant Command, the Secretary of Defense will allocate, physically locate forces in that AOR to conduct most of your rotations to theater. You were allocated to that Geographic Combatant Commander. That's without respect to command relationship, OPCON, attached, assigned, whatever. But you're allocated. The next level, National Military Strategy, Chairman of Joint Chiefs, and he apportions forces. I would like to think of apportionment meaning for planning purposes. So, Geographic Combatant Commander, PACOM, Indo-PACOM AOR looks, says, hey, Korea might go down. It's going to take 4 divisions, 25 BCTs, 2 air wings, 15 squadrons of fighter aircraft, etc. Those forces are apportioned to that GCC for planning. Conversely, the services have the responsibility to have those forces available, trained and ready, to support those potential contingencies. That's what meant by apportionment. Okay. Finally, the Army takes those documents, rolls them up into a 5-part Army plan, Army vision, Army strategic plan, Army strategic planning guidance, Army program guidance memorandum, and then finally the Army campaign plan. And those correlate to planning, programming, budget, execution. Okay. Obviously, Army program guidance memorandum is we see the Army plan going from planning to programming. Execution would be the Army campaign plan, which synchronizes the Title 10 functions for the Army for that given year. Okay, the Army plan. Now let's start into the 5 phases of the force development process. And so let's just talk about it overall, the Army force management model. This is the way the Army conducts force management. It's the way the Secretary of the Army synchronizes his Title 10 functions that he is required to do to provide trained and ready forces for the combatant commanders. So it's the process by which the Army manages forces, creates trained and ready units. It consists of 2 processes, the 5-phase force development process and the force integration process. So the purpose of the force development process is to produce documented forces either by MTO or TDA. Okay? And this ultimately ends up in the structure of the Army. Force integration is a process of taking people and equipment, merging them together to form trained and ready units, and of course we use sustainable readiness to make those units ready, to keep those units ready. In the past, R4 Gen, we have now gone to sustainable readiness to create trained and ready units. Okay? So the five-phase force development process, let's walk through that. And of course, there's three systems: PPBE, JSIDS, and the Defense Acquisition System. Those three DoD decision support systems are what all services have to use. Army force management in this force development process, force integration process, are Army-specific processes. Okay? But the five-phase force development process does start off with JSIDS. So if you notice up here in the top left, it starts with strategy. Our new national defense strategy says we need to be prepared to face Russia and China in a near-peer threat. We've done some analysis and said we are not really prepared to do that, so we have developed a new concept to face that challenge. It is known as multi-domain operations. Okay? A concept is the way we intend to operate in the future. Concept is the way we intend to operate in the future. In this case, multi-domain operations. So you can see strategy leads to concepts. The Army concept framework was Army capstone concept, Army operating concept, and then the functional concepts. The functional concepts being developed by the warfighting functions, the centers of excellence, as to how they would execute the Army's operating concept. So you can see how the AOC kind of unifies what the warfighting functions need to do in order to execute that concept. You do know that we're going to go from a capstone concept to the higher tier being the operating concept, then there'll be a framing level, and there will be still the functional and supporting concepts. But for right now, the capstone framework is capstone concept, operating concept, and then the functional concepts. Okay, so we develop those concepts. Warfighting functions start analyzing gaps. The process by which they analyze gaps, capability-based assessment. Three parts to it: functional area analysis, functional needs analysis, functional solution analysis. And you know, with respect to area analysis, looking at the broader operational environment, what is it we need to do? Functional needs analysis, we're looking at those high-risk capability gaps. You're aware that the Army, in the macro levels, identified 17. There's those gaps that we have to be able to do in order to execute that future concept. So we're going to focus on those in that functional needs analysis. Those high-risk capability gaps, we'll take them to functional solution analysis using the .mil PFP framework. You know that .mil PFP is the way we analyze current and future military gaps. So we'll look, that is broken down into two general frames, if you will: material, non-material. Non-material being preferred because it's quicker. If it's a material gap, 3 lanes: urgent, emergent, deliberate. Deliberate being the most preferred because it's going to be a total solution. There'll be total package fielding, there'll be logistics, it'll be a program of record, training, everything will be associated with it if it's a deliberate program. If it's urgent or emergent, you know, you've heard that term drive-by fieldings. There could be inherent problems where the system is not backed up with the normal resources if it's a deliberate solution. Okay? That would be the material solution. And of course, the DAS, 5 phases, 3 milestones. Milestone A PM is going to be appointed, program manager, acquisition program baseline established, that's performance, cost, and schedule. At milestone Bravo, if successfully approved, the CDD with the KPPs in it is approved, it will become a program of record. And then ultimately, milestone Charlie, the decision to start producing that low rate initial production, normally 10%. That's also the time that soldiers will see the systems for IOT&E. And then if successfully passes IOT&E, a full rate production decision is made and will produce the total Army acquisition objective for the number of systems. There is an intent to move all that to the left because that system is taking too long, and the goal will be to get equipment in the hands of the soldiers earlier, and that's what Army Futures Command is working on with the material developers, because we know this is taking a long time. If it's an organizational solution, it will, that proponent, that center of excellence, will develop a unit reference sheet, part of a force design update packet. They'll have an operational concept, organizational concept. The operational concept is how that organization is going to work when employed, what their relationship is with their higher headquarters, adjacent units, subordinate units, how they conduct their mission, external, if you will. The organizational concept for that organization is how it functions internally. How does it do sustainment? How does it do communications? How does it do medical evacuation? How does it function internally is the organizational concept. That becomes part of that FDU packet, and they will pass it up to DA in step 3 of the force development process. Their DA will use FIFA analysis, those 9 areas. They're looking at it from a DA's perspective. Can the Army afford to do this? What are the impacts of structuring? All those kind of things. If they determine it has promise, they will give it to use of PHMSA. Use of PHMSA will take that FDU and turn it into a table of organization equipment, a requirements document, what the wartime requirements are for that unit to perform its wartime mission as designed. They'll apply BOIPs to it, basis of issue plans, based on the type of equipment it's given. BOIPs simply tell you what it needs in terms of mechanics, recovery vehicles, all the second and third order effects of applying a certain type of equipment to it. Okay? From there, it will compete in total Army analysis. Let's go back to PPBE for a second. Planning, total Army analysis is validating, analyzing the capabilities that we're putting forth against various models. 2 phases to TAA, quantitative and qualitative. So in that first phase, we're testing those TOEs to see if they can accomplish the strategy, to see if they, and TAA is the last step of the planning process. So planning, TAA, the output of TAA is 2 things, the R-struct, which is a UIC, SRC level of detail of the senior leader decisions made during TAA, what the Army's going to look like. We are going to activate this UIC truck company. We are going to deactivate this SRC UIC brigade combat team, whatever it might be. It's also going to be, with respect to compos, let me kind of back up on you. TAA phase 2 decided the compos that we would have the Army in. One of the things you'll see as we kind of look towards MDO, a lot of the capabilities that are in Compo 2 and 3, Guard and Reserve, are going to be moved to Compo 1 because their capabilities are needed to execute multi-domain operations, if that makes sense. Okay, so again, total Army analysis is the last step in planning. The other output besides the R-struct from TAA is the POM force, the Program Objective Memorandum Force. That's what we're going to program for. So we go from planning to programming in phase 4. And then ultimately we will budget for what we're programming in the out years. We'll submit that to DA. And then finally, TAA will take the R-struct and create the MTOs and TDAs, the authorizations, the force structure that the Army is going to man. In force integration, we are simply manning those organizations that were authorized in phase 5. Acquiring, training, and distributing the people and equipment necessary to man those organizations, whether they're entirely new or they were simply changed as a result of the previous processes. So, in a nutshell, that is the Army force management model. Again, 2 processes, the Army 5-phase force development process, the Army's force integration process, merging people and equipment together to form training ready units, and 3 DoD systems, JSIDS, PPBE, and the Defense Acquisition System. The purpose of which is the way the Secretary of the Army manages change. It's the way the Secretary of the Army executes his Title 10 responsibilities, providing training ready units to the geographic commanders. So subject to any questions, that concludes that. So anyway, I apologize for doing it like that, but I just wanted to get it